A very good morning to you all. You're watching World Talks and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Not a day goes by without thousands of Hungarians protesting in Budapest, and there seem to be plenty of reasons for those protests to take place, starting with a law that aims to ban the annual Pride March, through economic hardships that affect lives of everyday Hungarians, to wider crackdowns on democratic freedoms. In the meantime, Hungarian Prime Minister is, in a surprising move, has decided to step out of the International Criminal Court, and Hungary is the first of the EU member states to do so. To learn more on the details of what's currently happening in Hungary, I'm joined by Katalin Cseh, Hungarian Member of Parliament from the Momentum Hungarian Party, former Hungarian Member of European Parliament. A very good morning and thank you for joining me on the program.
Good morning, thanks for having me.
So for many days now, as we've seen, daily bridge blockades have been taking place in Budapest. We've seen protests. How would you describe the mood of civil society in response to the ban of organizing the Budapest Pride March? Do you see Hungarians as people who often protest, or is it quite extraordinary?
Well, I would say that people have realized how severe the effects may be also on their lives if the right for free, peaceful the assembly is limited. And this is exactly what this law aims to do, not only banning the Pride March, but also enabling large-scale facial recognition to be utilized against the participants on peaceful protests, allowing the government to fine these participants based on these facial recognition generated data to up to 500 euros per participation. So this caused these protests to erupt, and ever since we've seen the anger of the people growing and the number on the streets also growing exponentially. I think people really want to stand up for their rights and for their freedoms.
So your party has taken a prominent role in protests before. What is the message that your party, the Momentum Party, is trying to send to the current government?
Well, our message is simple. We want our freedoms back. We want our liberties back. We don't want to be curtailed. We want to be able to speak freely, to protest freely, to organize whenever we want to. And there is a crowd behind us who also demands the same. I don't think that these calls for action are so extreme in the European Union. On the other hand, I would imagine it to be the contrary, that a legal framework like this taking place in the 21st century in the European Union is absolutely absurd, and we hope that the government will deem it unsustainable in light of the protests and this law to get withdrawn.
So my understanding is that the Momentum Party has been in opposition for quite some time, but we also saw the growing support for the TISA opposition party, a younger sister when it comes to being in the opposition to Viktor Orban's government. What do you think is driving this shift in the public opinion, and how is it possible that TISA is amassing that momentum and that focus?
Yes, TISA has been a formidable focus point of the Hungarian internal politics in the past year or so, and I think the popularity of this new opposition movement is very much tied to the growing unrest in society, to the economic hardships, to the dismal state of education, of healthcare, and I think people just finally realize that they need to demand better for their lives. They want, they need to want change, and this society-wide anger is really channeled through protests all around the country, whether it is in the capital organized by Momentum and our partners, whether it's on the countryside where TISA is bringing out huge crowds also every day. There is movement in society. There are elections next year, and I really hope that the country will be able to change direction to a more sustainable, more free and more European way.
So whenever there is an unrest in society, whenever there are protests emerging, whenever people walk onto the streets to give their voice about, and in this case, their dissatisfaction about the state of things, that is usually the motor for change. Do you believe that what is currently happening in Hungary and people showing their dissatisfaction could be actually a potential beacon of change in the government? Could the government be changed, overthrown? What is the dynamic there?
Well, Viktor Orban has been in power over 15 years now, and in the course of his tenure, Hungary developed into a country that is not a democracy anymore. He destroyed basic freedoms, rights of the people. The state of the economy is in tatters. Education, healthcare has never been worse than before. And also, in light of the terrible war raging in our neighborhood, Orban has been deviating from the European consensus. He's taking the side of Vladimir Putin. And I think for now, really everything has arrived to this point that if we do not change the government next year, I don't know if we will ever have the chance to do so. So people are now marching and organizing in the hopes of achieving change at the elections next year. This is really the very last moment where we can stand up for our country, for ourselves, and for our European community. So yes, I'm very hopeful that change could be achieved in the upcoming years.
Do you think that Viktor Orban, after the parliamentary elections, he would actually allow the democratic transition of power if the opposition wins?
Well, of course, this is a question that comes up quite often, and I cannot give you a very confident yes, but also I believe that there is a limit until which he can push his power grab. And if there are millions of people on the street, if the result of the election is very clearly not in their favor, if people mobilize to take back the country that has been captured by a small class of oligarchy over the past 15 years, then we have the power to shift things back. But he wouldn't yield power easily. And not only because of ideological reasons, many members of his government, maybe even of his individual immediate family, have shady financial interests that might very easily end up before courts after a change to a more democratic way. So for them, it is also a fight for their freedoms in their own peculiar way, fight to keep up their financial sources of income and their power that they have been amassing over the past 15 years. But I really think that the power of the people could overtake them.
With the Hungarian parliamentary elections coming, are you afraid that Russia could potentially try and get involved into the election process? I mean, we've seen some examples happening in other places. So I wonder if Hungary could have a similar problem and what your opinion on this is.
Well, honestly, I don't think that Russia really has to infiltrate our system. It has already been there ever since the war on Ukraine broke out. The Hungarian state media has been a carbon copy of the Kremlin talking points. They are spewing hatred, disinformation, things like Ukraine is responsible for the war, that the massacre in Bucha did not happen, or that the Ukrainians are shooting at themselves. Like really absurd statement, but they are all over the media controlled by the government. So I think Russian interference is already there. I can imagine this intensifying, getting closer to the election. But honestly, I think the Orban government is also part of this operation of Vladimir Putin when they try to shift the mood and spread fake news and influence people to move away from Europe toward Russia. But this is really absolutely against the interest of everybody, particularly of us Hungarians who have been fighting for so long to belong in a free and democratic community such as the European Union.
And how do you interpret Hungarian government's decision, the most recent decision that took many by surprise to withdraw from the International Criminal Court?
Well, this was also a surprise for many of us, and it's clear that he made a very unilateral move here without consulting society, without any kind of debate on it. Well, the Orban government has been undermining the international consensus on peace, on human rights, on values for a very long time. He has been destroying the European Union from the inside, acting as Putin's Trojan horse in NATO. So unfortunately, stepping out of the ICC in this very crucial moment comes at not a just as a familiar part of this very dangerous pattern. This is very regrettable.
And yes, indeed. What do you think should be the reaction, since Hungary is the member of the EU? What should be the EU's response to everything that's been happening, including that decision to withdraw from the ICC?
Well, I believe that particularly in the current situation after the announcement of the tariffs from the United States, the EU really has to devise a way on how we can speak with one voice, how we can act as strongly as possible based on our norms, based on our constructive cooperation. And I really hope that Viktor Orban changes his mind and he joins this European effort that has to be essential also for Hungarian economy. But if not, I think first of all, the EU has to move forward, organize itself better, and also to protect its founding principles based on the rule of law, based on democratic values much better. Also in ways of providing more financial support for those independent NGOs, medias that fight for these causes, to be able to inform people, to better condition European budget on values, and to remain a safe haven for democracy. And if Hungary is not abiding by these rules, I really think it has to be a part of a discussion on how we can still function effectively as an EU, as the European Union in these global situation. I am not sure that the unanimity is sustainable, for instance, when it comes to foreign policy votes, when one member state very clearly is against the consensus and blocking everybody else.
Katalin, thank you so much for giving us this inside look into the situation in Hungary. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much for having me.
Katalin Cseh, MP from the Momentum Hungarian party, was my guest. And so this would be all for now here on World Talks, but please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features.